The Middle Ages, a period defined by faith, feudalism, and a rigid social order. And within this structure lay a profound, debilitating paradox that made life with medieval women almost impossible for the men of the era. The impossibility wasn't one of physical difficulty, but of relentless psychological and spiritual contradiction. The medieval worldview, heavily influenced by thinkers like Augustine, placed every woman in an impossible dichotomy. On one side stood the Virgin Mary, the pure, unattainable, and elevated ideal of womanhood, a vessel of grace and an intercessor for man's soul. This was the spiritual blueprint for how women should be. On the opposing side was Eve, the original sinner, the fatal temptress whose weakness introduced sin and death into the world. According to much of the era's theology, it was through the feminine that evil entered the world, and every woman carried that taint. For the average medieval man, this created an inescapable psychic burden. His church instructed him to revere the saintly mother, but perpetually distrust the earthly daughter. How could a man find peace in a wife who was both his spiritual hope and his potential ruin? This profound cognitive dissonance was the foundational impossibility. This struggle was further compounded by the social and economic reality. Legally, the married woman was subjugated, under principles often referred to as coverture, particularly in the common law of England. A wife's legal identity was absorbed by her husband's. She could not initiate lawsuits, make contracts, or dispose of major property without his consent. She was, in the eyes of the law, a perpetual minor. Yet this legal non-existence clashed violently with the economic necessity of her role. In a world where subsistence was the constant battle, the medieval woman was often an indispensable economic engine. Whether she was managing the dairy, brewing the family's ale, spinning the flax, or running a small shop in town while her husband traveled, her labor was crucial. She was a co-producer, sometimes the primary producer of the family's wealth. A man was legally required to control her, but practically required to trust and depend entirely on her competence. The man who failed to reconcile his legal duty to dominate with his economic need to cooperate risked both his salvation and his family's survival. The clerical class, overwhelmingly male, institutionalized this fear. Through sermons, scholarly treatises, and medical texts, women were pathologized. Misogynistic literature, drawing on sources from antiquity, painted women as driven by vanity, uncontrollable passions, and innate deceit. Medical texts, based on Galenic humorism, declared women to be colder and wetter than men, rendering them more susceptible to irrationality and hysteria. The fear was comprehensive, reaching beyond sexual temptation to encompass all aspects of social interaction. Women were seen as prone to witchcraft, excessive gossip, and rebellion against the natural male-led order. This atmosphere ensured that any man attempting a genuine partnership or emotional intimacy with a woman was constantly swimming against a torrent of societal instruction designed to breed suspicion and maintain hierarchical control. Ultimately, life with medieval women was impossible for most men because it was founded on an impossible contradiction. They were forced to maintain a close, essential bond with a figure whom their entire culture, theology, law, medicine, and literature, had declared to be fundamentally flawed, dangerous, and legally dependent. The resulting anxiety, the constant requirement to police a beloved and necessary partner, meant that peace and true understanding were rare commodities in the medieval home.